Welcome back to Street Grain. Today I'm going to show you how to develop Ilford HP5 using Rodinal inside of an Essex 35 daylight loading tank. First thing you want to do is take your film lead out using this tool called a film lead retriever. You want to insert the plastic tips into the opening of your film can. Sliding the first slider in, rotate counterclockwise until you hear a click. Slide in the second slider. Rotate the opposite direction until you feel resistance. And slowly and carefully pull out until your film lead is revealed. Go ahead and pull out just a little. Next, you want to grab your scissors, a Sharpie, maybe a ruler. You want to cut right where the film starts to curve for the film lead. Go ahead and pull out about 1.5 to 2 inches. And what you're going to do next is use a Sharpie. Draw a line about 2 inches. And this is where you're going to cut to. And you're going to cut right at the edge of the sprocket holes. Right up into that line you just drew. Cut those sprocket holes right off. Next, take your tank, and the Essex 35 tank is actually very intuitive. You don't need a changing bag. You can develop anywhere. It has a great opening to pour your chemicals in. It also features this great cutting tool when you're loading your film, and a built-in thermometer when you're on the field. It's truly a all-in-one system. Open the lid. This is the tool that actually helps guide the film onto the reel. The reel itself is pretty simple. It uses this clip that grabs your film and helps it guide it onto the reel automatically. You don't even have to think about it. Your film goes into this little holder and you push it back and make sure it's nice and snug. Also note that you want to fold the end of your film lead. Find your film lead and load it onto the little clip. You just want it to make sure it doesn't fall off the actual reel when you're loading the tank. You'll be able to see it as it's going onto the reel if it's gonna work or not. It's kind of hard to mess these up if you do it right. Go ahead and close the tank. And I typically like to use gaff tape to make sure it's nice and secure. That way I know the lid's not going to fall off when I'm developing. It also makes a nice little reminder for myself there's film inside this tank and not to open it. There's a special option for 12, 24, or 36 frames, so you can actually do partial rolls and save the rest of the roll for later. And today we're doing 36 frames, so I'm turning the wheel all the way until I feel resistance. Once I feel resistance, I will use the little cutting tool. So as you can see, it's at 36 frames. I go ahead and cut it to finish loading the film onto the reel. For your chemicals, you're going to need Rodinal, Ilford Rapid Fixer, and a stabilizer. This is Hypoclear. Step 1, Step 2, and Step 3. Take your Rodinal and 200 milliliters of water at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Your timer. Pour the developer into the water. Start your timer and pour the Rodinal directly into the tank. Just be careful not to spill. That's why I like using these trays, so none of the chemicals will spill onto my work surface. Start turning the wheel, and you'll want to continually turn this wheel for the entire process. With these tanks, I like to use 1+25, so I'm using more Rodinal, so it's less time. In typical Patterson tanks, I'll usually do 1+50, and I'll have a development time of 11 minutes. But for these, they're mostly for convenience and speed, so I usually typically use a higher concentration of Rodinal. You want to develop this for 6 minutes. Every minute or so, I'll give it a tap, just to make sure no air bubbles form on the emulsion. Once the timer is complete, pour out your chemicals. Because Rodinal is a one-shot, you can pour this in the sink. You can't reuse it. To stop the development, just rinse it in cold water. Alternatively, you can use a stop bath, but I find cold water works just as fine. Now you're ready for fixer. You need 200 milliliters of fixer, just like your developer. Start your timer and pour in your fixer. Continually agitate for 5 minutes. And just like before, give it a few taps just so air bubbles don't form on the emulsion and kind of ruin your images in the end when you're scanning. And once your timer is complete, do not throw your fixer out into the sink. This is damaging to the environment, damaging to the pipes. It's just not a pretty chemical. You want to save this, and it's reusable, so don't throw it out. I've made a batch of fixer last me over a year because I took care of it. So Once you're done pouring out your fixer, you can take off the lid and see if you got any images. Again, the gaff tape's not necessary, it's just for me as a safety precaution in case the lid were to fall off for some reason when I'm developing. And we have images. Now it's time to wash. You want to wash your film for about 10 minutes. It's good that all the chemicals are washed off your emulsion, just to make sure it'll dry evenly and no water spots form. It also helps if you use hypoclear or some sort of stabilizer just to make sure no water spots form onto your negatives. If that ever occurs though, you can always just use isopropyl alcohol and a very soft Kim wipe or something to just carefully wipe it off. I hope this video was educational, informative, maybe you learned something new. If you have any questions, always feel free to comment. Make sure you like, subscribe, and go to my Instagram page, Street Grain. I try to post regularly on this channel, so if you have any concepts, ideas, suggestions, haiku poetry, feel free to message me. Thank you.